So here we are in touristic Old Montreal at Camtec, trying out the ultimate tourist camera, dressing like a tourist. It doesn't get better than this. This is the Leica Q3 in all its touristic glory. As you can see, I'm in the full tourist getup today to blend in with the crowd and, of course, do justice to this camera, which is the ultimate tourist camera. So it feels great in the hand. It feels like the other Qs, maybe a little heavier because now we've got that articulating screen. The phase detection autofocus works like a charm. I could put it in full auto mode and see where this goes. But it's exactly the same as the other guys. It feels very similar. Maybe better built, who knows. I do love that we finally can put this accessory threaded shutter release cable here on it, and you got all that new swagoo you can add to it, like the thumb grip and the vented hoods and all that. Add that Leica bling to your aluminum Leica with brass accessories. I'm not here to judge. You do what you want, but it's aluminum at the end of the day. So let's go take a walk in the old port. I got Julien over here from Camtec on the camera, and it's a nice hot day in Montreal. It is 30 degrees, and let's take it for a spin. Of course, we've got the coveted leaf shutter in this camera, like all the other Qs have, and the 28mm Simulux f1.7 that they all have as well. So not too much has changed here. Just the whole speed of the operation has just increased. So let's shoot it at wide open and see what we can get away with. As you can see, I'm just shooting and spraying and praying right now. We'll see when I get home if these pictures actually come out. Like what we have on the M11, you have different sizes for your RAWs now. You have large, medium, and small DNG, as well as JPEG and DNG. So you have the same sensor in the M11, and apparently the colors in this are better than the Q2s. People had complained about that, so now apparently this is very similar to the M10's color profile, which is what everybody likes, including myself. So we'll see if that's the case when we go home and review these pictures. But for now, let's just talk about this user experience. So people asked for the articulating screen. Well, we finally got it. It's 2023 or is it 2013? Because the A7 had the exact same screen with the flex cable. I see it right there. I don't care. I think it's cool for shooting from the hip. I used to do that a lot with my A7, but do I need it on an M or a Q? That remains to be seen. I feel like these cameras are so intuitive that you could just get away with not having it because you're gonna be shooting from the hip. You're more connected with these cameras, right? Especially if you have autofocus and it's a 28mm. I don't feel like you need the articulating screen because it's wide enough. Where articulating screens come in handy, I find for myself, is when you're really focusing on composition, on just framing, and of course, you know, getting that confirmation. But with an autofocus lens, you don't need that as much. It's a wide enough angle that you're not too concerned about the framing. And with Leica's M's and Q's, because of the way they're designed, I find that you always have a good gauge of its level, right? They're very cylindrical, very squared in their shape. I don't see how, like a Sony or something like that, where you have the grip, that's where that would come in handy. But in this case here, I'm not too sure that the screen is a necessity, but it's there. You can use it if you want it. It does protrude, it does cut with the design a bit, but it is what it is. There's 60 megapixels in all its glory. That's nuts. That is cool. Here, let's get a shot of the screen. It's got that new clicky screen feel. You've got that wireless accessory shoe here. You got the increased battery capacity now on this one. Your SD card is right. Oops, I gotta pull this out. It's right here. And for the first time ever, we got accessory ports. Look at that. You could charge it. You got a micro USB. No, it's a micro HDMI, never mind. And a USB-C. And of course, plastic hot shoe cover, accessory shoe standard. Your shutter speed mechanically limited to 2000, and then it goes up from there to some stratospheric number. 1/8000th. Look at all this stuff. Oh, optical image stabilization on. perspective control off. Shutter type mechanical, let's go to hybrid. And let's see how high this guy can go. So we're gonna go into auto. 1/8,000th of a second. Can we go higher than that? No, I think it is 1/8,000th of a second. Interesting. And I wonder,
Does it never work?
we can get any jello artifacts. Yep, okay, electronic shutter, you get jello. Yikes, that's not what it looks like. So you can go high, but you don't need to go high. 1/2000th of a second is the real cutoff for this. Let's be real here. But it's nice to have, but just don't go shooting people playing golf at 1/8,000th of a second. So we're gonna go back to mechanical on this guy, because I don't need that. I don't need my street photos look like jello. I love the menu system. I love the silence of it. And autofocus is fun. And it's fast. I feel it in my hand. I feel the motor moving in the lens. I know it's getting the shot too. Let's see, you can look at the screen here. Yeah, it's tracking. Yeah. Let's go on to phase detection here. I want to see what we can do. AFC. Okay, there we go. Oh, it's a Christmas tree. Look at that. I hear the motor hopping all over the place. Look at that. I'm just half pressing the shutter. Unreal. Okay, we'll see if we got any of those. Over here. Oh, yeah. So let's see. Yeah, wow, that's pretty. Oh my God, that's actually very impressive. I got the shot. That's good. That's good. Wow, not bad. You saw that happen in real time. Let's shoot 1.7, 1/2000th. Okay, we're on full manual here. And I'm gonna drop the ISO to 50 because you can do it. It feels like an aluminum M. That's what it feels like to me right now. I love the silence. I'm snapping away right now. Oh my God, that's so good. I love it. Okay. I really like the silence. And the autofocus seems to be working really well. So far, so cool. I love it. And the leaf shutter is the best. Here we are in the thick of it. And I actually might have to stop down because as good as the maximum shutter speed of 8,000 sounds, it's actually not that. It's 1/2000th. So the last Q I used was the Q2 monochrome. So it's been a while. It's been 2 years since I tried one. I love these cameras, but I always say the same thing. They're stepping stones to the M series, and I'm going to stick by that because even for myself, when I first tried the Leica Q in 2017, it just shot me down the rabbit hole of going down towards a Leica M. I wanted to try an M240, then I got an M10, and I haven't looked back since. And as much as these Qs keep calling my name, I just can't, for myself speaking, see myself limiting myself to a 28mm lens. As nice as a package this is, but it doesn't mean that, you know, I'm not speaking for everybody here, especially if you're traveling solo and you want to have a light setup. This is definitely the one to get, especially now since it has that refined color and it shoots 8K. I mean, this is future-proof. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the Q2, especially the Q2 mono. That camera really was spectacular. Now let's walk over here. Let's get some shots of this guy mopping away. The screen is spectacular on this thing. The tracking is really good too. Wow. Yeah. Cool. The tracking is phenomenal here. Look at that. My God. So you still have the old macro function, you know, manual focus override, you can do that too. It just feels like a really well-built camera, which is what every other Q is. Let's get something that's gonna test the dynamic range a lot on this camera. So right here, we're gonna do the exact same test we did with the M11. So we got some shadow here, we got some highlights, we got the white car. It's not the most beautiful picture, but it's gonna be a good test on the camera. So that's first shot on small, medium, and large. I have a feeling these files are gonna be massive, but I'm very curious to see if it exhibits the same thing that the M11 had, which is you get a slight boost in dynamic range at the medium setting, which is just a nice feeling to kind of tell yourself to shoot at the medium size, because I really think that 60 megapixels is a bit overkill for daily photos. I don't know any street photos where I'm gonna need to crop and see someone's nostril hair. I feel like the small or medium sizes are fine, which also begs the question, if you have a Q or a Q2, do you really need to get that 60 megapixel increase? That's your call to make. The improvements here are nice. I still like that you can add that, you can customize it a little bit. The threaded shutter is definitely something that's been overdue. But other than that, it's just a well-built camera like all the Leica Qs are, and just a fun camera to use. Here are the frame lines for the cropping. Wow, that's a full box. Cool. It does exactly what I want it to do, which is take pictures easily, quietly, and it's not in the way. And for that, there's very few cameras out there that can do this. The price is high, but they seem to be holding their value too, so you can always just try one of these for a few years and then go on a few trips with it and then sell it for barely any loss. The demand is high right now. This just came out, so there's very few to go around, but as soon as these start hitting the shelves, you're gonna be seeing a lot of Q2s come for sale, and I don't know, that's a tough call, right? The price difference that you're gonna see of a couple $1,000s is also gonna be very interesting, but the improvements, the 8K video, the 60 megapixel sensor, the fact that you can control the size of the ENGs, right? That's a big thing for me. I take a lot of pictures. I could see this as a wedding camera for my wide angle shots, for my environmental portraits and all that. This thing is not in the way. It is very much like every other Q, which is like a Leica M, which is very unintrusive and very quiet in operation. This could be a nice companion to someone who has a 50mm on a Leica M and wants to switch and have a wider lens and a more quiet operation. The autofocus is welcome. It's very fast. So far, I don't think it's missed a shot. I'm looking at it when I take a picture and it seems to just be on the dot. Very impressive camera. Just fantastically made. And that's it. That's my first impression. Let's go check out the files at home and see what we think about the colors and the sharpness. All right, so here we are back at home. I've had my time to look through the pictures, and let me tell you, this sensor sings. But before we do that, let's unlock these pictures even more. So far I've been editing with Adobe Color, and the sensor's been very, very good. But let's not forget that these sensors always excel when you use the embedded profile. So let's just unlock that really quick. We're gonna go into the profile viewer in Lightroom. We're gonna go into Manage Profiles and open Legacy. And now we're gonna get the embedded profile. Look at the difference. It's subtle, but it's not. And now we have our embedded profiles, and wow, does this sensor shine. It looks so much like the M10s, and I love it. The dynamic range, look at that. I lowered the highlights all the way. Look at that dynamic range. Unbelievable. This camera is just perfection. This is it. This is like your everyday carry Leica. You can walk around, shoot with it inconspicuously. Nobody isn't even gonna hear it because it's so quiet with that leaf shutter, and it is just great. The autofocus works so well on this. I'm looking so forward to seeing Leica implement phase detection across their entire board of cameras, right? I can't wait for the SL3 to have something like this in it because it works so well, as you could see when we walked around with the pictures. Look at Look at the close-up ability too with that macro step when you rotate the lens. Look how close we can get. Look at that saturation. Unbelievable. And the sharpness is just next level. You can see I moved a little when we're up close. My M's can't even get close to this close, right? The files just work so well. They look natural. Skin tones look great. I mean, this is it. Screw zone focusing when you got autofocus that works this well. Look at that. We're shooting from the hip. You saw this happen in the video. We took these pictures together and look at that. The sharpness is great. I mean, and the amount of detail you're getting out of this, you're going to be wanting to shoot at 1/2000th of a second because 16 megapixels is unforgiving. Just like we saw with the M11, you need to turn on the image stabilization in this Leica Q3 because you're going to be pushing this camera to its limits. You're going to be pushing that sensor to its limits when you're going out and about, especially doing street photography. Oh, the dynamic range on this thing, fantastic. Just gobs of detail, and look at that. You can really push and pull these files. Real estate photographers rejoice. I don't know if 28 millimeters is enough, but you can make it work. And what I really found interesting about the camera was when you apply the crops, just like you would with the Q2, it's non-destructive, right? If you're shooting DNGs, you're just shooting with those frame lines, and as it crops, you are only applying a crop. You're not actually cutting the rest of the image out. So when you get home and you thought, oh, maybe I should have shot at 28 millimeters instead of 35, well, you just go into your edit, you go into the crop, and you can just reframe it. That is such a great feature, and I'm so happy that the Q3 carries that, of course. And then you have now the added ability to shoot at 90 millimeters. Really cool. And let's just look at the detail you get out of this thing. Look at all of that. This is 60 megapixels, ISO 50, 1/2000th of a second. Look at all that detail. Ridiculous. Yep. Pretty cool. Pretty cool camera. I could see myself having this as my walk around camera, use it every day, you know, go for bike rides with it and not think twice about it. The autofocus works so well. This could replace zone focusing for me. And you're shooting at 1.7. And here we go with the dynamic range test here. So this is the large photo, this is the medium, and this is the small. When we go into the histogram here, you can see that they're all pretty similar. Obviously, the only difference here is the fact that I moved a little bit for the small one. But one thing I did notice is that on the large one, there seems to be more shadow detail here. I didn't do any difference in the editing here. They're all the same. So could be some reflections happening here because I didn't notice that difference in the other test shots I did. But maybe there is a bit more shadow detail with the 60 megapixels, but the file sizes are just insane at 60 megapixels. You're getting 84 megabyte on average file sizes. That's just gigantic. This is going to chew through your hard drives. And if you're shooting, if you have a solid state drive, get some external drives because this thing is going to chew through it if you're going to be using it a lot. Otherwise, shoot at the medium or small size. They're still adequate. The small size is just barely smaller than the 24 megapixels coming out of the M10, and this sensor reminds me so much of the M10. The colors are freaking great. I dare say I prefer this to the M11. The M11 just seemed like it had too much post-processing out of the box. These don't seem to exhibit that same look as the M11 had, and that is very welcome in my opinion. This camera really does feel like the only camera you need if you're gonna go out and about. I could leave my place and just travel with this camera and I won't feel like I'm missing out on anything because the detail, the lens, this setup is just so great. It's not intrusive. You can go around inconspicuously and take pictures, and it's just so easy. And the autofocus seems to predict really well what you want. In some instances, I had to manual override. So this one here, this reflection, it was going for the flowers around the windows. So I had to just tap on the screen and it focused on me. So really that's the only user input I had to do to take this shot other than hit the button. So very, very good. Another thing I want to point out is when I was shooting at ISO 50 at 1/2000th of a second, I was actually underexposing by a considerable amount. Look at that, I had to boost this by plus 2.1 here, stops, and that's a good amount of light. So this thing, I think you're safe to shoot at 1.7 ISO 50 and 1/2000th of a second in almost any circumstance, which is very welcome because I don't really like electronic shutters, and as we saw, this camera does exhibit a massive rolling shutter, so I would refrain from using the hybrid shutter setup. I would just go with mechanical on this one. And the sleeve shutter is silent anyway, so I don't really see a need to shoot silent or electronic, mind you, because there's no point. Let's go back at these pictures with the phase detection here, the test. These guys were walking against us, and we got the shot. I can't believe it. The autofocus is very good at predicting. I mean, maybe we are off by an inch or two here. We got the guy's ponytail, his little man bun here. But other than that, ridiculous. Look at that. It's very, very good, very accurate. I mean, these guys were walking against us. I can't stress that enough. If I were to zone focus this at 1.7, I would have not gotten the shot. So that pays for itself right there. This is just such a great camera. It works so well. The skin tones are beautiful out of the sensor. The files are huge, full of detail, and just gorgeous to look at. They have such latitude and such good recovery. The highlights here, I shot this at ISO 100 at 1.7. I mean, look at the detail here. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. This is at 1.7. So you can see towards the edges, you know, this is a DNG at the end of the day, so there is some, you know, editing applied at the source here. So they're definitely accounting for the vignette in some aspects. You can see there's like no vignette at 1.7, which is really great, but it's also because it's probably all corrected in camera before you even look at it. But I don't mind, makes the files look that much better. And here we have an example of some clipped highlights. I shot this at ISO 800, so we could see this guy's white outfit here is definitely clipped. There's a little bit of color fringing at 300% zoom, so let's not think about that too much here. And there's still detail to be had. Because you have so many megapixels, there's just more detail to suck out. This guy's entire outfit isn't in complete washed out white. It's actually usable. Such a great camera, really. I enjoyed using it in the street. I enjoyed walking around with it, and then diving into these files made me fall in love with it even more so. If you are looking at one of these, I mean, the Q Simulux is already proven to be a fantastic lens. With this sensor, it just really shines. The Q3 is a refined product. It is worthy of its title. It is the natural progression at the end of the day of the Q series, and it works so well. I'm having a hard time finding any faults with this camera other than the fact that I can't change the lens. It's just such a great tool. It's such a great camera. It's a joy to use, fun to walk around with. You can have this as your daily carry Leica and never look back. For myself, I'm very, very tempted, I'll be honest with you, but I have so many cameras already and I just love changing lenses. So I don't know, as an M shooter, it's a very conflicting experience because I really enjoy the files coming out of this thing. I really enjoy that lens. Everything about this camera makes so much sense. It's amazing, really. This is the ultimate one camera setup, and I can see people just having this and traveling with it and taking it everywhere with them because it will do the job and it'll do it really, really good. And I, as a Leica user, as someone who enjoys street photography or just, you know, testing myself all the time with manual focusing, this camera is definitely the closest thing to being the ultimate street weapon because you are able to take pictures so quickly with that phase detection and you're not missing any shots. It's just so accurate. I'm dying to see where the Leica system goes from here on out because phase detection has been such a missing feature. Now that the Q3 has it and it works so well, I'm excited to see where they go with this. The Q3 is definitely an awesome camera and I'm very excited about it. I'm sure you guys are too. So I'll see you guys in the comments below. Let me know what you think. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.